When my husband passed away, I felt as if the ground had disappeared beneath my feet. I had spent 45 years beside him, and suddenly I was alone, watching my own child treat me as if I were unable to think for myself. At his funeral, I sat quietly while my son Marcus and his wife Kira took charge of everything, as though I were invisible. Marcus kept telling me to relax and let them handle things, speaking to me in a tone that felt more like scolding than comfort. Kira just followed him around, giving me the same fake smile she always used when she wanted something. The day was already painful, but what hurt most was how people walked past me to speak to Marcus and Kira, as if they were the ones who had lost a spouse. I heard my daughter-in-law whisper to someone that I was too delicate to deal with stress. That single word, delicate, cut deeper than any sympathy offered that day. My husband had never treated me that way. To him, I was strong, capable, and worthy of respect. After the burial, everyone returned to the house where Elijah and I built our life. I sat in my usual spot by the window, watching Kira behave like she owned the place. When she offered me tea I hadn't asked for, I told her I was fine, but my voice didn't sound convincing. Marcus then came to me with a suggestion that made my body tense. He said the house was too large for me now, and that he and Kira thought it best for me to move into a senior home. I refused immediately. This house held my memories, my marriage, my entire history. Before I could argue more, the phone rang. Marcus answered and returned with irritation on his face. Someone from Elijah's workplace had called and wanted to speak to me, but Marcus told them he would take care of everything. Something about the way he said it made me uneasy. That night, after everyone left, the house felt painfully quiet. Then my phone rang. It was Elijah's employer, a man named Theodore Vance. His voice was serious. He said he needed to meet with me because my husband had left instructions for him, instructions meant only for me. He told me not to mention anything to Marcus or Kira because Elijah had insisted on secrecy. The next morning, I got dressed with a sense of purpose I hadn't felt since my husband died. I lied to Marcus, telling him I was only going to pick up medicine, and drove to the office tower where Elijah had worked for decades. Mr. Vance welcomed me kindly, then showed me a folder full of notes my husband had written. He explained that Elijah had been worried. According to him, Marcus and Kira had been trying to persuade Elijah to hand over full control of our finances and medical decisions. They'd even suggested that I was becoming forgetful. My stomach twisted as I read Elijah's careful records. He had noticed everything. He had tried to protect me. Then came a knock at the door. When I looked up, Marcus and Kira were standing there, staring at me with expressions I had never seen before. "We don't think she should be making serious choices without family watching over her," Kira said. I felt my chest tighten. "Family watching over me?" I repeated. "I'm 68, not a toddler." Marcus and Kira shared a look, one I had seen before but never understood until now. It carried secrets, plans, things they thought I couldn't notice. Marcus smiled, but it wasn't warm. It was the kind of smile people use when they're trying to calm a child. He told me they were scared that someone might try to mislead me while I was grieving. I glanced at Theodore, who had stayed quiet, listening with a thoughtful look. My eyes drifted to the folder on his desk, the folder that held evidence my husband had collected before he supposedly died. I asked Theodore a few minutes alone with my son and daughter-in-law. He stepped outside. The moment the door closed, Marcus relaxed as if he had taken control of the situation. He told me not to believe anything Theodore said, claiming that people often take advantage of widows, especially ones with money. That word, money, made my stomach twist. How did they know so much about our finances? When I asked them, both froze for a second. Then Marcus said Elijah had mentioned it during a conversation months ago. But it didn't sound like my husband. He always shared everything with me. He would never keep a discussion like that secret. Before I could speak again, I heard a soft cough behind the bathroom door. My heart nearly stopped. The door opened, and there he was, my husband, the man I thought I had buried 4 days earlier. Elijah stepped into the room, alive, looking at me with both love and guilt. I touched his face, needing proof that he was real. Marcus swore under his breath. Kira gasped. Elijah apologized, his hands steadying me. He said it had been the only way to keep me safe. Then he turned to Marcus and Kira. His voice changed, becoming firm in a way I had never heard from him. He said he had faked his death because he discovered what they were planning. Both of them denied everything at first, but Elijah opened the folder and took out papers, messages, recorded conversations, copies of documents, proof of their intentions. I listened in horror as he read aloud their words about my declining mind, their comments about my supposed confusion, and their plans to take control of every part of my life. He showed me photos taken by a private investigator, Marcus gambling huge amounts, Kira buying expensive jewelry with credit cards opened under my name. I felt sick. Elijah explained that they had been secretly stealing money, making charges, and hiding bank letters so I wouldn't notice. Then Theodore played a recording of Marcus and Kira discussing how to get me into an assisted living facility using fake medical reports. They even discussed selling my home right after. When Elijah paused the audio, the room fell silent. I looked at my son, hoping to see regret. Instead, he just looked annoyed, as though his plan had been interrupted. For the first time in months, I felt completely awake. My mind wasn't failing. I wasn't confused. I had been tricked, pushed, and lied to by the two people I had loved like my own heart. And in that moment, I knew I would never let them control another minute of my life. "We were only trying to move things along because we needed help," Marcus said. The bluntness of his words hit me so strongly that I couldn't answer at first. When I finally spoke, I asked him if he was admitting that he and Kira had been waiting for Elijah and me to die so they could claim our savings. He insisted that wasn't what he meant. Kira quickly jumped in, trying to soften what he had said. She claimed that every family plans ahead. I told her that healthy families don't create fake medical reports to make their parents look incapable. She went pale and muttered that it had only been a backup plan in case I needed long-term care. I reminded her that she paid $10,000 for that backup plan. Marcus rubbed his hands through his hair, a sign he was getting frustrated. He said I was losing touch with reality and that Elijah had filled my head with nonsense. I repeated his words, nonsense, and told him that wanting to live peacefully in my own house without being labeled unstable wasn't nonsense at all. Marcus shouted that no one was calling me unstable, but I could hear the lie in his voice. I walked to the phone and dialed a number I knew by heart. Kira asked what I was doing. I told her I was calling Elijah and that he should hear everything. Marcus begged me not to, but the call was already made. Elijah arrived 20 minutes later, clearly expecting this confrontation. The room tightened the moment he entered. He greeted them calmly and sat beside me, taking my hand in a protective gesture. Kara sat across from us, trying to look small and helpless. She said she knew how their actions appeared, but insisted they had acted out of fear. Elijah asked them to explain exactly what kind of fear drove them. Marcus started talking fast, as if he had practiced the speech many times. He said the debts had grown out of control. He confessed that he had gambled heavily, hoping to win money quickly. When he lost,
everything instead, they panicked. Why their solution had been to take our money, Elijah asked. Marcus insisted it wasn't stealing. He said we had more than we needed and that the house was too large for two people. He admitted they were trying to speed up what he believed would be his inheritance. I asked how trying to declare me mentally unfit fit into that plan. Kira began to cry, a dramatic, fake cry I had seen her use before. She claimed they never meant harm and only wanted to protect me while paying off their debts. I told her that placing me in a retirement facility against my wishes was not protection. She said I would have adjusted eventually. The silence that followed made even them realize how cruel their plan sounded. Elijah stood and told Marcus that from that moment forward, he was no longer part of our lives. Marcus shouted that he was our son. Elijah corrected him, saying that biology meant nothing when a child chose greed over love. Kira argued that we couldn't cut them off, but I told her that real family doesn't steal, deceive, or wait for you to die. Marcus looked at me with coldness and admitted he was tired of pretending to care. His words hurt, but they also freed me. I told them both to leave my house. Marcus threatened legal action, but Elijah warned him that any court would hear about their false documents. Their confidence broke and they left. 6 months later, Elijah and I were living in a small town called Redwood Springs. We bought a modest home with a view of the mountains and enough space for Elijah's garden. Leaving Marcus behind felt like cutting off a limb. But Elijah reminded me that you cannot save a person who was willing to destroy you. Our lawyer helped resolve the legal issues. Elijah faced fines for the false death certificate, but the evidence against Marcus and Kira was so strong that they ended up under criminal investigation. Marcus received probation for fraud, and Kira lost her nursing license. They divorced soon after. I did not feel joy in their downfall, only a quiet sense of closure. We sold the old house and paid off the debts they created in our names, so we could start fresh, unlinked from the past. One evening, I asked Elijah if he thought Marcus would ever understand what he did. Elijah said he didn't know, and that it was no longer ours to fix. Not long after, a letter arrived from Marcus. He wrote that he was in therapy and finally realized how entitled he had become. He said he wasn't asking for forgiveness, only acknowledging what he had done. Elijah asked what I wanted to do. I said I wanted to keep living our life. If Marcus ever changed through real actions, not just words, we could reconsider. If not, we would still have a beautiful life. Later that day, I wrote a letter to myself. I told my 68-year-old heart to forgive itself for loving too deeply, trusting too fully, and believing family love had no limits. I reminded myself to honor the strength it took to finally see the truth and to act on it. Celebrate that you finally picked your own life instead of bending yourself for everyone else. Later that night, when Elijah and I were getting ready for bed in our new room overlooking the mountains, he turned to me and asked quietly if I regretted anything, especially cutting Marcus out of our lives. I answered without pausing. I told him I only regretted not seeing the warning signs earlier. He then asked if I regretted his staged death. I let out a small laugh and told him it had certainly been dramatic, but it had also gotten the job done. Elijah chuckled and agreed. For a moment, we just lay there listening to the soft nighttime sounds around our new home. Then I admitted something that had been sitting in my chest for weeks. I told him that, strangely, I felt younger than I had at 50. It was as if I had been dragging around a heavy chain for years without realizing it. Elijah squeezed my hand gently and told me that this was what happened when a person finally stopped shaping their whole existence around the wants and moods of others. This morning, I received a cheerful call from Brenda, the neighbor who has quickly become a friend. She said a few of them were planning to go to the farmer's market on Saturday and then have lunch at a new French cafe, and she wanted to know if I'd like to come. I accepted immediately. Not long ago, I would have overthought it. I would have worried about whether Marcus or Kira needed anything, or whether it was proper for a woman my age to be out enjoying herself. Now, I simply say yes when something brings me joy. As I write this, I'm sitting on my porch with a warm cup of tea, listening to Elijah happily whistling while he waters his roses. It strikes me that this is the first time in many years that I feel completely unburdened. I'm free of guilt, free of pressure, and free of the constant need to explain my choices to people who never truly cared about my well-being. Marcus once said Elijah and I probably didn't have many years left. Maybe he was right, but whatever time remains belongs entirely to us now. Years we will spend living on our own terms, surrounded by people who are sincere and kind, people who don't hide manipulation behind the word family. I have learned something priceless. Sometimes the bravest thing a person can do is step into an uncertain future and walk away from even those they once loved, especially when that love has been twisted into something painful. Real freedom often begins the moment you stop letting others decide your worth. Tonight, I know I will sleep peacefully for